Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today is the Wednesday follow-up video. If you're new to the channel, this is where we answer all the questions and address the comments from Saturday's video. And Saturday's video was boring those big sprockets. The next video, which will be this Saturday, I decided to try to get back in the rhythm of it, is over on the slaughter, cutting the internal keyways. So let's dive into the questions. And as I said in Saturday's video, this is not a children's channel, so prepare to be offended. So Josh, are these Spacely sprockets from the Jetsons? No. I think these are a lot better quality. Those were cartoonish. I don't know that they even ran straight. Here's one. I would have put a board on the ways when changing a chuck or chucking those sprockets because I wouldn't trust myself. That is the difference between a hobbyist and a real machinist. You know, you gotta have quality equipment, and hobbyists don't have quality equipment. My lifting equipment is quality. It's well built, it's well designed, it's way overrated for what I'm using it for. That is the difference. Are those for Wheeler? I have no idea who Wheeler is. Not a clue. None. Do you have to do anything different when you come to the end of the hole like regular twist drills? I've noticed with twist drills sometimes have to feed it slower so it doesn't tear up your tip or break out material when you come to the end of the hole. It also must be nice to just change the insert when it's worn out rather than trying to sharpen something that big on a bench grinder. When I get to the end of the hole, on using one of the big spade drills, and if you watch some of the other videos of that same job, when I get to the end of the hole, you'll start to hear some chatter because the material's getting thin on the end. What I generally do is feed it harder. Punch through that, rip that butt plug out of there, basically. Just get it out of there, punch through it. And they hold up really well. Them things are tough. I don't know, I'd have to look exactly what they are. Most of them are a cobalt or a high-speed steel with a good coating on them, but they are tough and they work extremely well. Hi Josh, always entertaining to hear you describe your little toys. Have you got an Elephant Johnson for boring out really big holes? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Why not true up the hub as well? Because that's not part of the job. That's not what the customer asked for. You do what the customer wants. I've asked them before, do you want me to true that up so it runs true? And they're like, no point. It's running slow. It's not hurting anything. It's not causing vibration. Don't worry about it. You know, don't charge us extra to do something we don't want. So we don't do extra that they don't want. The only extra I do is to face that edge so I have something to set it on the slaughter. We had one guy just kind of go nuts on his commenting because he didn't wait till the end of the video where all the questions were answered. So we're just going to skip his stuff because he's kind of being a dink. Josh, I'm curious if those are Martin sprockets. They are really accurate in my opinion. Even for a machine that runs 790 RPM, they are top-notch parts. They are Martin, but I don't think they're that good. They work. They do the job for the customer. They're relatively inexpensive for their size, and they're about the best quality they were able to find. They've tried multiple others, I know. These hold up about the best. All right, here's a good one. Curious, of the jaws of the chuck, if they didn't happen to line up with the teeth, how would you go about mounting that thing given you can't use the hub? Assuming you probably could use a forejaw, but then if it didn't line up with any of them. So yes, the forejaw would be the next step, or here's another big one, or make a set of soft jaws that are much larger to cover a larger area so that you can grab more. I've done that before for other things and they work out really well. How many times over the years have you turned around and walked into that chuck hanger? Twice. And the second time I learned, raise it up or get it all the way over. Yeah, twice. All right, this one's more personal. This one kind of goes back to me working a new job. I am a boiler and pressure vessel inspector working for jurisdiction here, and also am working towards my authorized inspector's commission. So How's your time at home with the traveling for the new job? Very limited, because I get home at night and I'm out here in the shop until dark later, trying to just get caught up with the few things I'm trying to get done before summer. I've got a few customers left that, as you see, this job is a repeat job. This is one customer I have left. And I'm trying to get their stuff done and a couple little ones. That's it. I'm not taking on any more. I'm not interested in more work. I am done. I'm done with this shop. I'm going to keep my customers that I have, do their stuff, and my own stuff. So yeah, my time at home is very limited. All right, here's one. Why not chuck on the inner surface of the sprocket? So down in the valleys. My reasoning are twofold. The inner surface is what the chain reacts with. Even though a few thousandths of runout was acceptable, I figured the surface of the chain interacts with might be the better choice. More importantly, with the jaws further in, it would both lessen the swing arms of death. Oh, lessen the swing. Yeah, see, that doesn't worry me at all. And total angular rotational forces. So the reason I didn't chuck on the inner diameters is, quite simply, I would want to make a different set of jaws with a big round pin. And that would just grab down in there nicely if I did that. And that would make more sense to chuck on that, especially on these sprockets. On other sprockets, they're pretty close, or they're really close. I wouldn't worry about it. Like a standard sprocket you ordered, not these big flame cut suckers. These are bad. Swinging arms of death, you don't go over there. It's that simple. Come on. Okay, here's a good one that I've wanted to address for some time. I've seen this asked multiple times, and it's obvious that there's a huge disconnect in understanding around the world on this one, and I don't get it. I really don't get it. Why do American turners constantly have their compound slide set at an angle for general turning and boring? The compound is set at 29.5 degrees. That is for threading. You leave it at 29.5 if 90% of your work is gonna have threading. So you set it up, you leave it there. You do all your work with it at 29.5, then when you come back with your threading tool, you're set up, pop it in, do your threads, done. That quick, that easy, and there's no screwing around turning it. The only time I turn it is when I need to do something odd, different, but otherwise it lives at 29.5 for that reason, for threading. Unless I'm doing an Acme thread, then it's at 14.5, I think it is. I think it's 14.5 or something like that. I don't remember. I don't do a lot of Acme threading. Then the next one here, which is actually a really good one. It seems to me a standard twist drill might not have worked well at all in this scenario. The existing off-center hole would want to pull the drill off-center as well, and likely made a larger off-center hole. The spade bit overcomes this nicely. A properly sharpened twist drill would do the same thing that spade drill did. The only difference, the only reason I really use the spade drills is the through coolant and the changeability of the tip and the lifespan of the tip. I used to do these with twist drills, and the key is, I had one that was a 1/4 inch off. I mean, that thing was bouncing all over the place. You go in nice and slow, and you just let it cut on that side until it gets in, and you can watch it. You'll see when the drill starts moving. You watch it, it'll, nice and slow, until you're in there, it'll run straight. You just got to be slow. So the only advantage to the spade drills is the changeability of the tip, the coolant, and the hardness of those tips. They last forever. Is the customer okay to show where it fits on their machine? No filming in the facility. Well, I hope that answered all the questions. Now on to the people that were offended by me using the real terms used in a real machine shop. Get a life. Grow up, move on, quit being offended, quit being a wuss. Get out there in industry, go get a job in a real industry, machine shop, welding shop, any big factory. The railroad, good God, you guys wouldn't survive 3 seconds on a railroad, I guarantee it. You wouldn't survive 3 seconds in a machine shop either without being offended. I wish you all would just buy a third world country and move there together and be offended somewhere else. I honestly do not care what you people think. Stupid, absolutely stupid. I could not care less if I offend somebody. I mean, those of you who know me, actually know me, you know I don't care. Anyway, Saturday's video. We're going to be on the slaughter, putting in the keyways in those big sprockets, and we're doing it a little differently, so it'll be fun. And actually, it went really well. I was very surprised at the outcome. I hope you all enjoy that video coming up. And again, check out the older content. A lot of great stuff coming. Until next time, get out in your shop and get it done right the first time.
Too dumb to quit, too proud to cry, still grinding steel under a fading sky. The last machine shop in a frozen hell, just me and a dream I can't seem to sell. Too dumb to quit, too stubborn to die.